Before we begin this week's episode, I'd like to tell my Sydney listeners about an exhibition they might be interested in. 3 Edge Studio is proud to host 25 in the Landscape, a 3 Edge gallery photography exhibition. The collective welcomes you to come along and celebrate the rich diversity of our landscape through the lenses of 25 talented photographers. Taking place at the M2 Gallery in Surrey Hills between 14 and 17 June, immerse yourself in extraordinary perspectives amongst nature, worlds reimagined, urban surrounds and the fluid beauty of the ocean. 3 Edge welcomes photography enthusiasts to the highlight of the show on Sunday the 16th for a Meet the Photographer event. Come along and chat with the photographers and gain insights into their mastered techniques across photography genres, including wildlife, macro, seascape, aerial, infrared and intentional camera movement. Meet the photographers specialising in long exposure techniques, Glenn Crouch and Jim Gavin. Glenn Crouch is a much celebrated seascape photographer who has dedicated many years to capturing the dynamic moods and play of light for Sydney's ocean pools. Jim Gavin has also developed a lifelong passion for photography, continuously learning new techniques and exploring new destinations. Experience the remarkable imagery captured by photographers who deeply connect with the ocean through their seascape photography. Jen Williams, Susan Whitby, Redim Spitzer, Edward Dirks and Carrie Brock. Jen Williams and Susan Whitby take their photography into the ocean and give us an immersive experience. Jen's artistic style is sensory and creates beautiful imagery of a dance between water and light. Susan heads fearlessly into a crashing wave, bringing us powerful imagery that's unseen by many. Radim Spitzer is driven by a deep fascination with the ocean's ability to evoke emotions within us. Edward Dirks has developed his work for over 40 years through persistence and a passion for the art form. And Carrie Brock features the stunning surf and rock pools of Sydney's northern beaches. Be inspired by the outdoor photographers Pat Duggan, Lisa McKinlay, Michelle Thambaraja, Cam Blake, Simone Higgins, Emma Sainsbury and Jessica Mees. Pat Duggan transports us from the hustle of city life to the serenity of aerial ocean photography and the breathtaking colours of the Alpine. Melbourne photographer Lisa McKinlay channels her passion for outdoor adventures into her imagery while also inspiring others through photography teaching. As an avid adventurer, Michelle Thambaraja often revisits locations to capture the deep sense of place. Tasmanian professional photographer Cam Blake showcases stunning imagery from his wilderness explorations and leading tours in Tasmania. Simone Higgins is exhibiting the magic of minimalist monochrome landscapes. Jessica Mees captures rich imagery from her hometown in rural New South Wales, while Emma Sainsbury thoughtfully composes each scene to bring a deeper connection with nature. The exhibition dives into rich architectural photography by Sydney-based Liz Bell and Gail Mitchell and showcases aerial masterpieces from Serena Jackson's Salt Pan series, alongside Diane Armstrong's boundary-pushing angles and moments with wildlife. Experience nature at its magnificent best through the lenses of Alison Griffiths and Robin Moon. Alison captures the intricacies of an exquisite macro world, whilst Robin transports us to moments in the animal world of sheer power. 25 also takes the audience to experience a world transformed with creative photography explorations. Painterly, abstract and ICM work from Sue Dowling, Frances Gass and Lisa Shaw reveals the world unseen. Thomas O'Brien piques curiosity with his mastering of black and white infrared photography and dreamlike seascape imagery. Fringing on the unsettling from Kevin Brady always mesmerises. Mark your calendars for the 14th to 17th of June and join 25 for an exhibition packed with inspiration, creativity and adventure. For more details, please visit 3 Edge Studio on Instagram or Facebook or their website www.tefg.com.au. That's www.tefg.com.au. And now back to the show. Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Erin Babnik requires very little introduction to landscape photographers. She's renowned for her incredible images and knowledge which she shares through workshops year-round. We discuss insights into her photography journey, highlighting its profound impact on her life as both a career and a creative pursuit. She discusses the challenges of sustaining inspiration and her transition from art historian to landscape photographer. She also offers valuable insights into her creative process, discussing the balance between planning and spontaneity, the significance of exploring new locations, and her approach to running workshops. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Erin. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
I'm doing all right, Grant. Thanks for having me here. Excited for our conversation.
Thank you for coming and talking to me. It's absolutely wonderful to have you on the show. You're definitely someone I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. I've just been working through my long list of photographers that I need to talk to, and you've definitely been up there for me. I don't want to start with the usual, because I know you've been on many podcasts and you've probably told the story about how you got started many times. So rather than start there, I want to ask you a question about what photography is in your life.
I appreciate that, not having to go through that for the umpteenth time. Photography is everything in my life. It is my career. It is my passion. It is my connection to a huge percentage of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much what I eat, sleep, and do all of the time. And I never, ever grow tired of it. The only part that ever gets tiring probably is the professional end of things. That can become quite a grind.
Yeah, sure.
But fortunately, I love the actual photography itself.
Awesome. And I guess one of the things I really like to explore is that motivation. What is it that about landscape in particular, but what is it about photography that keeps you inspired, and how do you stay inspired with your career, which has spanned quite a few years? I don't want to call you old, but,
That's all right.
Being quite a career, and I guess I'm just interested in how you stay fresh and how you stay inspired.
Art has been the one constant in my entire adult life. So I was an art historian before. I said I wasn't going to get into that story, but that'll be all I say about that. And out of that background, I have just an insatiable appetite for storytelling and interpretation. And I have this crazy imagination that really gets turned on when I'm looking at natural features and seeing in them either things that are anthropomorphic or that are somehow just very suggestive of universal truths and big ideas. And that excites me. As a former academic, of course, you can't turn that off. And it's always fun when things can get me going, besides the fact that I just love being outdoors. So I think that's what keeps me inspired, is the imagination part of it, that it's an outlet for play for me.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to feel inspired when you feel like you're playing, you know?
Definitely. That really resonates with me. It's definitely, I was out this morning at about 5:30 playing down by the beach and got my feet wet, and was rewarded with some nice color this morning, actually. But when it feels like play, it is, it doesn't matter what else is going on in the world. That's really just a way of keeping going.
Yeah. The one time and the only thing that will thwart that is if I'm producing some kind of project. I'm doing work for some kind of project, and then there's a higher level of pressure involved, and then it doesn't feel like play, it feels like work.
Yeah.
As long as I can get back to the play part, it's always good. Excellent.
I want to talk a little bit about that. Do you have a process for setting creative challenges for yourself?
I don't think so. Everything's a creative challenge, right? Anytime you go out in nature, it's always a challenge. And that's what's I think the other part of it that keeps it spicy, right? You never are guaranteed to get what you want, and you always have to think on your feet. And it's always a project of getting out there with one idea and pivoting to another. So it just never gets boring because of all of that.
Yeah. And do you set yourself goals though? Do you, yeah, obviously when you're working on a project, you've got a goal to work towards in completing that project, but do you set yourself goals in your personal photography at all, or is it just
Um,
free fall?
Occasionally, for example, I would have to say yes for my most recent trip, or I spent a few weeks in the Southwest on a color mission, which I
Mhm.
don't usually do that though. But I did just say, I really want to infuse some color into my portfolio, and I'm going to chase wildflowers wherever they're blooming or
Nice.
anything that's colorful, red rock at sunset, anything. And that's unusual for me. Usually I'm more after some kind of specific aesthetic, like I want ice or I want mist or something like that, more so than color. That's a new one for me. So I don't normally go out with a mission like that. So it was unusual for me, and it was actually super fun because that project, although part of it was actually for an ebook that I'm working on,
Uh-huh.
it was also just part, it was very wide open, and I could have done anything because the ebook topic left me a lot of room to do
Yeah, no.
whatever. So it didn't feel that stressful. It more so just felt like a personal project that was a lot of fun, and I did find a lot of color.
Awesome. Do you do much pre-visualization with your images, or are you more just reacting to the landscape when you get out there?
It's always a combination, like I was saying with pivoting. Usually I will go, if I went out with an idea, it often happens that I then get distracted by something else.
Mhm.
And then it becomes just a matter of pursuing that. But other times, even when that does happen, I realize that, okay, now I've got an idea, not one that I came out to do, but I also can't do it right now.
Yep.
And so now I'm pre visualizing when I can. So I don't think that a lot of people say that there's one method that's better than the other. And I don't think there ever is a pure route there. I think most
Well,
people do work
I
that
think
way.
it's different strokes for different
Even,
folks. Different people get
yeah.
excited, and I know one photographer I've spoken to on the podcast earlier, they were really driven by getting into competitions and striving to win competitions, and
Mm.
that drove them pre-visualizing and drove how they set up most of their work, which I know a lot of photographers don't do, but it's as I say, it's just different things for different people.
Yeah. But I really do think that even people who are like me and like to just go exploring and randomly discover things, we still find things where it's like, oh, that would be amazing if I could come back in winter, note
Yeah,
to self. And then you do. And at that point, you are pre visualizing,
yeah,
you
true,
know,
true.
whether you want to call it that or not.
Or you see something amazing online or whatever, and you go, "Oh, I'm going to fly to Iceland or whatever." Yeah. So I guess in doing that and working the way that you do you work towards trying to find something unique or one of a kind, or are you trying to not necessarily be generic, but distinctive within a particular genre?
Oh, yeah. No, the former. So I have a portfolio that has almost nothing in it that you could consider iconic, or if you could, it wasn't when I got out there and photographed it. It was back in
Oh,
the day. And because that those sorts of areas where I feel like they're haunted by the ghosts of a million photographers just do not turn me on.
yeah.
I can't work there. I often do find myself in these places when I'm accompanying friends, for example, or when I'm taking my groups to places that I've been going to forever, but now there's a ton of shots because I've been taking my groups there for 10 years. And even there, okay, so yeah, there's always the let's try to find another way to cut the cake. But that's just not the fun. That's not fun for me. I much prefer more dynamic scenarios. That's why I do have a lot of misty conditions in my work because I like the conceal and reveal that you get from atmospheric
Yeah.
conditions that you just don't know what you're going to see or how it might utterly completely obscure something that other people would recognize. But mostly I like the challenge of being able to figure something out. That is the fun part. So
Mm.
I like just putting myself into an area where I don't know what I'm going to find there. It's the blank place on the map. And that's exciting when you can just go out there. Like, I'm going here because it's not something.
Yeah,
Let's see what's
yeah,
out there.
yeah. You can't actually see a trail or a road on the map when you go, yeah, what's there?
Yeah, or certainly not a landmark. What I like to look at topo maps and look for
Yep.
areas where I know that at that elevation, I'm likely to find certain things, but I don't know exactly what. And so I'll just go out there and hike around and explore. And I might know that there's certain peaks in the vicinity, but I don't know what exact vantage points I'm going to get on them. And that is super fun. So I'll do that all day long.
Yeah. Do you do much experimentation in technique or taking risks to push the boundaries of your creative work? And in doing so,
Definitely. Yeah.
that also means that there's going to be failure and setbacks. And
Oh,
how
for
do you,
sure. Yeah. That's largely, I think, what really helped me get off the ground was very early on. I embraced a lot of techniques that were not at all common back,
Mhm.
back then, that are more so now, such as focus stacking and exposure blending and focal
Sure.
length blends and crazy stuff like that. And I just didn't even know how. I had to figure out how to even make anything of those ideas. And to this day, I'm always looking for new ways to do things, especially now that cameras have increasingly amazing capabilities with being able to handhold things that you couldn't before, being able to handhold focus stack, nutty stuff like that. What does that open up?
Yeah.
And like, one of the projects I've been working on for a while now is there's this area where you get this great ridge light in an area that's just full of foliage and Joshua trees and just crazy like rabbit brush. And it's just absolutely chock full of it.
Yep.
And nobody goes there. Not an area that's very well known. So it's really just a nut for me to crack. And I've been working on it for a long time. But anyway, I decided I wanted to do this project to see what I could get out of all 500 millimeter really super tele shots out there to get really cool compression on the ridge light so that I get this kind of spotlit effect. I know now where all the ridges are and when they get their light, and then they'll
Yep.
be like, it'll be against a dark background. And but shooting it at super tele and then trying to focus stack that, oh my goodness, I've set myself up for just a lot of hurt. I have it's
What?
like fleeting moments where you literally have 30 seconds to get in. And yeah, so it's challenging, but it's fun.
Cool. And I guess I'm interested in how you deal with that. You have those setbacks or failures where things didn't quite work. You missed the light or whatever. Is it just a matter of coming back and doing
Ah,
it again, or is it,
yeah. I just keep
how do
going
you pick
back to that
yourself up?
spot. I don't have a shot I really like from what I just described. And I've been
Okay.
out there now probably to do specifically that maybe about a dozen times. I have some that
Wow.
are interesting and they give me that I'm encouraged. It took me a lot just to figure out how to get the right light and then what I could get away with those focal lengths with the compression and the
Uh-huh.
focus stacking. And but still just I want to do something that's just super convincing. And so
Mm.
I have stuff that's cool. It looks cool. It's not it for me.
Yeah.
But how do I deal with it? I sometimes get really frustrated. And I do have, I think, probably a smaller portfolio than a lot of photographers who've been at it as long as I have because of this habit of mine. Not just that kind of thing, but also the exploration. I do a
Yeah.
ton of that. And for all those times I've gone to the blank spot on the map, and most of the time you don't find anything. Or I find little things that are interesting, but they're nothing super special. So it can get frustrating. I just have to, on the days when I got nothing, it is disappointing. But there's always that time when I think, you know what, today looks good. I could probably go out there again. Now I really know about that ridge. Now I know where to stand this time, and I can't resist.
That's awesome. I'm also really interested in, given your career, is there anything that you would do differently if you were just starting out now?
Ooh, I wish I had back in the day when I started out, I was of an island. I did not, I coming from art history, my
Yep.
early photography was entirely related to that and just developing my archive for teaching and research. And I did not interact with other photographers because it never even occurred to me. And I also never, it took me a long time to even remember when I was out in nature that I could bring the camera there too. And
Yeah.
I wish that had occurred to me sooner, that maybe I did know other photographers and they'd be like, you'd probably enjoy landscape photography. Duh. It's funny how long it took me to just try that. Oh, I could actually just bring the camera out there. It's funny, but yeah. So I feel like
Yes.
I missed out on a lot of years because of that.
It's amazing the number of people I've spoken to who just started out hiking and then eventually, or traveling, but the getting out into the outdoors was the primary driver, and then the photography came
Sure.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine was maybe almost backwards. I had the photography going on. I'd always
Mhm.
been into the outdoors, but I didn't get into photography in order to capture what I was experiencing outdoors. Far from it. I got into it because I was an art historian who needed images for my dissertation and for teaching. And once I was very into photography, really far along, making about a third of my living already doing it at that
Uh-huh.
point, stock photography and that sort of thing. And it had never occurred to me. It really hadn't, that I could just go have fun with the photos. Like I could just take the camera out hiking. That just didn't. I always had like a little film camera that could shoot pano format.
Mhm. Yep.
And that to me was just, it was documentation. I was hearing this is cool, but I wasn't making images. That
Yeah.
was not, but with the big camera, I was. That
Okay.
makes any sense. I never really put it, and once I finally did, that was it. There was no looking
Yeah. So was that
back.
the
I
moment
was like,
where
why
it
was,
started to click for you?
yeah, when I finally decided that I would actually go out and try to make an image just for the sake of doing that,
Hmm.
that was like a revelation to me. I was going to go out with that was my goal. Aside, not in a museum and not in an archaeological park, because that's where I spent most of my time
Sure, sure.
photographing them to that point. And the archaeological parks, they are so frustrating. I would occasionally get special permission to go in when they were closed, the museums and or the park, but mostly they wouldn't allow you to bring a tripod. You had to go in the middle of the day when the light is strong, and it was just those frustrations are all what I thought of with photography in general. And then that was actually what finally got me to think about it. I'm like, maybe it doesn't have to be photographing Greek temples in southern Italy. Maybe I could just go bring this camera with me wherever I want to and see what I can do with it there. And it
Sure.
doesn't have to be about my dissertation. It can just be fun. It's okay, Erin. You can go have fun.
You can go play. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went out, and at first I was still thinking in terms of how I used to. My first subjects were ruins of a different sort. I would go and find World War I bunkers in the Alps
Okay. Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And because that's just what I knew, was photographing temples outdoors and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And but I could go photograph that World War I bunker whenever I wanted to.
Yeah,
At
right.
that point, I understood what good light was. And that just was so addictive. And then it just eventually I realized that I could also just do nature. And once I really got into that, that was it for me. And it
Mm.
wasn't long before I gave up the academic career entirely.
A lot of landscape photographers talk about storytelling with their images and the, I guess, the use of the visual communications medium to express that story. Is that something that you do, or is it
Mhm.
more about
Oh yeah,
the other
I
way
have.
around? It's the image that creates the story itself.
I think you could look at it either way, but yeah. I have written whole articles on exactly this topic. I've given presentations specifically on storytelling and landscape photography. So that's one of my things that I love to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, again, it goes back to that urge towards interpretation. So I can't look at a tree or a mountain or any feature and not think of it as some kind of abstract sculpture in a landscape in dialogue with the other characters around it. To me, it's just a big stage with a bunch of characters on it. And there's a story there. And what I always say is that just because I see a very specific story doesn't mean I expect my audience to see exactly that either. So that's where I think people get confused about what exactly we mean by storytelling and landscape photography. To me, it's suggestive storytelling. It doesn't mean that it's like Jack and Jill went up the hill to get the pail of water, and it's like super specific. I think as long as your viewer feels that the image is fairly compelling and they are interpretation minded, they'll find something in it, and it could be completely different from whatever it was that you saw, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's art.
That's it. Yeah.
There's a saying that I often say, which is that you will always intend more than your viewer will see, and your viewer will always see more than you intend, and that's okay. It's totally okay. That's how it works.
Yep.
I recently was at Imaging USA for a big Canon event with all the explorers of light, and one of them said to me, he's a very well-known portrait photographer, and he said something like, "What are you even doing with landscape photography?" I forgot exactly how we got into it, but I had mentioned, to me, it's storytelling. No, it's not. No, it's not. It was funny.
How did you make the decision to go full-time photography and make it a career as opposed to either a sideline or a hobby?
I was at an agony. I think it took me maybe, I want to say 4 years or something of thinking about it before I finally did it. Because I had an academic career, and you know how hard you work on that forever. Yep. And so the very idea of dumping that just crushed me until I realized that I wasn't. I was just building on it. I was taking it with me. I was still going to be teaching, still going to exotic places like I used to, because I was a classicist. So I specialized in ancient art, hence the temples and all that. So when I realized that I'm still going to be writing, still going to be speaking and teaching and doing all of the stuff that I've been trained to do over the years, I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. That I can do this. Also, though, it helped that I was already making a good income from it, just part-time. And I was getting more and more requests for things that I was not even advertising, not offering at all, and let alone advertising, just not offering. I wasn't doing workshops at first, and people were saying, reaching out, can I do a workshop with you? How about private workshops? That sort of thing. And eventually maybe it's time to strike. The iron is hot, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you balance? You talked about, I think before we started, spending a fair amount of time on the admin and the bits that aren't photography, the bits that aren't the play. How do you balance that? And how do you find you have to wear all the different hats, marketing, CEO, CFO, et cetera, How do you do that?
It's terrible. I'm not really great at that, to be honest. And I have 2 assistants. Now I'm down to 1, but I had 2 assistants, and one was really my main personal assistant. And I realized that I'm just not a great manager. And I was ending up spending so much time trying to figure out how to get my workload off of me and onto her. And like, delegation is an art. So I've got another one it's really easy. She basically does itineraries for me, and that works out well because that's very straightforward. But with the other one, I tried to get like the emails. She had an email on my domain, and she took care of a lot of stuff, but it ultimately was a lot of, I got this email from a student who needs X, and I was spending more time talking to her about it than if that person had just emailed me and I just dealt with it. And
yeah, sure.
I'm sure a better manager would know how to make better use of a PA, but yeah, that I don't think there's balance. So I basically just work too much.
Yeah. Okay. And What's the most important thing you've learnt from running your own business?
Oh, I don't know. Nothing really comes to mind. Is I basically, I guess but that's everybody hears that the more you turn your passion into a business, the more you will have less, the less time you'll have for the passion.
Yeah,
That is
you get dragged
absolutely
away from the
true.
passion piece and more into
Yeah.
the admin piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's the rare person who is so good at business that they are able to figure that out.
Mm.
I have a lot of friends who are full time professional landscape photographers. And I would say most of them, if I can't, I'm trying to think of it. I know one I can think of who does pretty well with hiring, like delegating. And but most of us are just, we either just work a lot or the ones who don't seem to have to work quite as much are the ones who are just really good at the passive income end of things.
Yeah.
And they have their rhythm and they do similar stuff all the time. And that works for them and they're happy with that. But that wouldn't work for me.
Okay. So with your workshops, are you doing mostly one-on-ones or you do group workshops or a bit of
Oh,
a mix?
no, no, I stopped doing one on ones years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I just can't justify it. No, the group workshops have always pretty much for the last, I don't know, long period have been all I do. And that's that's something that just comes naturally to me because I've always been an educator as an
Yeah.
art historian, like I said. So yeah, but I try to keep my workshops to pretty small groups. So I
Hmm.
would say I do a lot that are 8 to 10 in there.
Okay.
I've done some that are quite a bit larger than that, but usually then I'll have a field assistant or two. And
Yeah.
I've also done some that are smaller. The more that you get into it and the more that you have the ability to go to places that can accommodate larger groups, then the more that makes sense. I found that the sweet spot for me is where everybody's really able to ping off of each other. And
Yeah.
if you only have 4 people in your workshop, it's okay. But the creative energy that you get from 6, 8, 10,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's awesome. And then when you
Okay.
start getting out past 10, it starts to break up again. I
Yeah.
feel there's that
Becomes a little
sweet spot there
unmanageable.
where, yeah.
Yeah. Because I guess
Yeah.
people start
It's
to
really
pair
hard
up
for
a little
everybody to
together
really
and stuff.
just work with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I find that once I can't get around to really work with everyone and once everyone can't really fraternize with each other, then that magic isn't quite as strong.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. What would somebody expect if they were coming on a Erin Babnik workshop?
I always emphasize the creative side of things and that I want people to be able to follow their own nose. I give them a lot of guidance. I give a lot of seminars. So there's a lot of the theoretical
Uh-huh.
involved. I tend to draw more advanced photographers. I get a lot of full time pros in my workshops.
Okay.
And the idea there being to help them be them while also going to places that are very inspiring so that there's a lot for them to do there. So it's very rare that we're rolling up to something that's going to be super familiar to them and they're just going to replicate something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but there are times when I will bring them to one of my compositions that they will know and they'll want to do that, just get it out of their system. And then they usually, because I prompted them with a lot of seminars about composition and storytelling, then they usually evolve from there and they'll come away with something that really is totally their own. And so that's my workshop is how can I get people to be themselves or to figure out what that is. I see that as my goal more so than teaching camera settings.
Yeah.
I almost never do that. I think I can think of one student I've ever had on one of my own workshops. I used to do a lot of the Canon workshops and we would get a few of those types, but mostly I draw the ones who they don't need that. They do want to take themselves to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the challenge in those sorts of workshops is really thinking creatively about how they can actually take their own creativity to that next level and
Yep.
work on
Yep.
the uh, And I guess you're starting to talk then about the compositional techniques and so forth, rather than as you say, the
Composition's a
camera
big
setting.
part of it. Yeah.
It
Composition and
surprises
also just
me the number of people that turn up with a tripod, extend the legs as far as they can, and start shooting at head height normally. And something that I learned fairly early on is photography, and particularly landscape photography, is a game of, could be small increments, but that height and the angles that you are looking for are really the things that make the difference between an okay shot and something that could be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Although I will say I probably pull in more of the people who are used to getting low to the ground because they
Yeah,
see
fair
my
enough.
images like that. They're ready to go with that. They know how to they know how to focus stack. They really want is to work through their own ideas and their own options with various types of foregrounds, find those, see
Yep.
what they can do with them, or work if we're doing telephoto, which we do a lot of. They know all my Misty's work, and I teach them a lot about what you're waiting for there and what you can look for there. And very regularly, they come up with stuff that's theirs. They saw that, and then that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Nice. Where you live, has that influenced how and what you shoot and how much?
Oh, yeah. So for a very long time, I've split my residences between two continents. I have a home and office in Europe and one in California. And so those are the areas, those are two home bases. So that's why I do a ton of stuff in the Alps, in the Dolomites, in the French Alps, in the Slovenian Alps, and done a lot in on the West Coast, also in the Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
So I have those bases, and I think that's probably true for most people. Wherever you live, that's you're going to know that area pretty well. Within about a half a day or day drive, you probably are pretty familiar with that terrain. And so I'm fortunate to have two very different home bases to work out of.
Yeah. Do you think it makes a lot of difference knowing the terrain before you go out?
I do. I reluctantly admit that because I love going into places that I've never been
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing what I can do there. But for every time that has worked out really well for me, there's probably two other times or more when I've gone somewhere that I know really well and it enabled me to do something that most people wouldn't have known to do just because I know that spot pretty well or that area. I want to teach people about exploration and about just going out and finding things, but it isn't as fruitful as working with a place that you have a relationship with already.
Yeah.
It just usually isn't.
Usually particularly when you're traveling, you have limited time as well. So you're stuck with maybe 2 or 3 days if you're lucky in some
Sure.
places. And that
Yeah.
then therefore limits the conditions that you're going to see there.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Those places where you keep going back. I mean, even if you're traveling to those places, you're basically in a position to make really good calls about are we going to that side of the peak or that side of the peak today? For example, one of the most spectacular things that I've seen in the last couple years was when I had one of my Dolomites workshops at an area that I take people to quite frequently. And usually there are a couple of places that I will take people that are really distant from each other in this region, depending on the weather. And if I see that there's a good setup for backlit mist, I'm going that way. And if I see something else, I'm going to the left. And there was this one evening when I thought, okay, this is definitely a go to the left day, although I mostly go to the right because that one's a little bit more certain. And I'm like, this is a little bit of a gamble, but I feel like this is a good time to go to the left. And I'm so glad that I did because we got the most fantastic double rainbow.
Oh, awesome.
Looking just the exact opposite direction from where I mostly like 75% of the time would go.
Mm.
That I made that call because I know that place like the back of my hand. So
Yeah.
that's just an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. What's the most memorable experience you've had while out taking photos? I know you've probably had it.
That's I've had a lot of really amazing. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. I've been through, yeah, good or bad experiences, or
Oh,
yeah.
either. I love a good horror story.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I have seen so much wonderful ephemeral things in my life that are just jaw-droppingly beautiful. I feel very fortunate. So those are the memorable experiences, usually like the once in a lifetime light that you just saw something super special. Those always stand out. I've had a lot of crazy horror stories too. I'm usually adding a few of those to the repertoire every year. So, like very recently, I was in the Slovenian Alps, and this was
Uh-huh.
last winter. And I went up there on a day when it looked like I might be able to see. It was low fog, and it looked like I should have a pretty cool chance there to photograph the peaks with some low mist mingling around them. When I got up there, it lifted and I couldn't see anything. Like it was just nothing. So I just hiked around, and I was just by myself with my husband. I wasn't with a group. He went up there. He shoots gimbal BTS for me a lot of the time. So he had the
Okay.
gimbal,
Yep.
and we were going to do some stuff for a project I was working on, but it was like, there's nothing to do here. It's just whiteout conditions. So we decided we just get some exercise, and we still had the big camera bags with us. And we get on the chairlift. I'd taken the chairlift about half of the way up. And so now we're going back down, and it's way near the end of the day. And this is the last run, very last run to get down to the lower gondola station. And we get on the chairlift, and it's one of those open ones, no bubble,
Yep. Yep.
just a bench, right?
Mhm.
And we're going down. All right, total whiteout conditions, and the snow is super thin at this point. We can mostly just see grass through
Yeah.
patches of snow beneath us, and we're going along, and all of a sudden, the whole thing just stops. Like,
Nice.
wait, we're just dangling up there. We're like, what's going on? Can't see anything, can't hear anything. A few minutes
Wow.
pass, 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass. I'm like, I think we're stuck on this thing.
They've shut
And
down
it's
for the
been
night
kind
and
of
gone
windy,
home.
and it shut down for the night. Long story short, that's exactly what happened. The guy at the top didn't tell the guy at the bottom. There were two more on the lift.
Oh, wow.
And we were way up there where we didn't really have a signal. We were good, I don't know, 30 feet at least, 50 feet off the ground, way up there. You can't
Yeah. Not nice snow,
jump.
soft snow to jump into.
No, no snow to jump into. And at that point, I'm like, okay, and the temperature is dropping, and it's winter, and it's
Mm.
going to be well below freezing soon. What do you do? That was pretty terrifying. Fortunately, we managed to get a little whiff of a signal and call somebody,
Oh,
but we
wow.
still had to wait a really long time until they got that thing moving again. I think
Yeah.
somebody probably
Probably
lost
had
their
to go and
job that
find the
day.
guy.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about the world through photography?
Oh, wow. Just so much. So how incredibly diverse it is. Just when I think I've seen every kind of terrain and I really know the world, I go somewhere new like Antarctica last year, and I always knew Antarctica would be amazing for me, but I had no idea until I was actually there. It was mind blowing. And I think that's one of the really amazing things about photography is
Mm.
you really do learn more about this amazing planet just by getting out there and seeing it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Do you find yourself being more selective though in your shots than when you first started? Obviously, when you first started through your career, do you find yourself being more and more selective in picking
Mm,
out the shots you want?
I am one of those people who has always had that hyper selective gene, I think, to a fault. I am so picky, at least when it comes to curating what I've shot and going through
Yeah.
it and tossing out what I don't like.
Mhm.
I think if anything, I'm actually becoming more free with just experimenting and allowing myself to fail. So it's really going the other direction with me. And
Okay.
for a long time, I wouldn't even take the camera out of the bag, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the
And
light's not
eventually
good
I
enough.
learned that,
Yeah, not enough mist.
yeah, yeah, not feeling it. And, and it wasn't long before I realized that, and I say this to students, do you want to take a photograph this day today? Because the only way that's going to happen is if the camera comes out. Maybe you'll find
Yeah,
something, play with it. And the more that I encouraged myself to do that, the more I realized, yeah, you do know the light's not great for whatever it was you wanted, but it might be great for something else. Let's play with it.
yeah. Okay. And what's your routine when you get back from a trip? Are you straight on to editing, or do you leave things to marinate for a bit?
No, I'm a marinator.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I just processed a photo for this ebook that I've been working on was it last week? Because it was last week that I had never processed from a batch of photos that I had never processed from 2015.
Wow.
So 9 years later, I'll work on that one now. And it was something I really liked when I took it.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just, it just wasn't time.
So was there anything deliberate around that, or was it just the
um,
fact that you hadn't got around to it?
I think, yeah, it was a little bit deliberate. So I knew what I was doing back then. It was a slot canyon shot.
Yeah.
And back then, slot canyons were still very accessible. This was lower
Mhm.
antelope. And
Okay.
I had to ball down there just, and this was back when you could still go in with a tripod and you could do those photo tours. You can't do that
Yeah.
now. I think at the time I thought, why would I bother putting this out there? I they're my own compositions and I feel good about them. They're very photogenic, slot canyons, but it's a slot canyon. And so I had this kind of bias against it. And the only reason I'd
Okay.
even done the slot canyon that day is because I was with a friend of mine, Michael Shaneblum, and we had we needed something to do on a bluebird day. We're like, slot canyons. Like, but at
So
the time, it was one of those things that everybody was posting, and so I was poo-pooing the whole thing. But I'm like, whatever. But when I got in there, I was like, man, this is so cool, super fun.
uh,
Yeah, I think I was just being snobby about it for a long time, and now that it's like, oh, now you can't get those shots, like, oh, maybe I should process that.
do you find yourself being snobby about trends in photography and saying, "Oh, I don't want to be part of that," or even though you may have shot it, as you say, years before, but do you find
Yeah,
yourself
I
looking at
do.
those trends and going,
Yeah, I want because yeah, if it's really trendy, that's all the more reason for me not to do it, which is not fair because it should be you should just have fun with photography and do whatever turns you on. But
yeah,
that's just me. just oh, can I do something else? I'll come back around to that when everybody's cooled off on it.
that's the thing. You get the new audience, the generation that didn't see the ones before, don't you?
There you are. Once you missed it. Yeah. No,
Are
I just,
there,
it's
go
just
on.
funny how photographers are.
Yeah.
There's the mountain eras and then there's the tree eras and then then it's the grand landscapes and the sunsets and no now we're going to do misty stuff and bright light and now we're going to do small scenes and there's
Yeah.
always something and there's always someone who's advocating for this being the cool thing and everybody else who's doing that other stuff is just behind the times. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and after a while it just gets like, yeah, just go out and do what's fun.
Yeah, do what you enjoy. That's one of the things I particularly a few years ago in social media, you found quite a bit of gatekeeping about what you should or shouldn't be shooting, or what you should, how you should or shouldn't be shooting. Focus stacking is
Yes.
good, focus stacking is bad,
Mm,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
somebody that thinks their way is the right way, and from my
Yeah.
perspective, your way is the right way.
Yeah. Really. They're just, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
They're against near fire. Don't include skies. Do include skies. It's like it after a while, I think if you've been doing it for long enough, it all just becomes noise and you
Yeah.
just do what it is that turns you on. And I definitely hit that point a long time ago. But there was always that resistance to trends, and that'll probably always be with me, which is not
Yeah.
necessarily healthy, but yeah, I
No,
mean,
it's not also not
yeah,
necessarily a bad thing, because then I think sometimes your work stands out because it is a little bit unique and a little bit out of the ordinary because everyone else has jumped on trend X.
oh, sure. That's the whole impetus, right? Yeah,
That's it.
for sure. Yeah, no, that's the that's
Mm.
way more rewarding than just having a the latest best version of the cool thing. But on the other hand, I always say that the best thing that you can do as a creative person is work towards, not away.
Yeah.
And so work towards what interests you, not away from something. Because really, whenever you're working away from something, you're still working in reference to that thing.
Yeah.
You're never getting
Exactly.
away from it. It's still in your head, is the thing you don't want to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what I mean by it's not really that healthy. It's not helpful. You really should just move towards whatever excites you.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. Do you often bump into people that you know while out in the field? And if so, where does that happen the most?
I would say more often than not, it's the other way around. People will come up and ask if I am who I am because I tend to go to more
That's
wild
Erin.
places that I get that actually a lot, but I ask for it because I wear purple and people know I
Hmm.
wear purples. They reckon that's probably me. But when I'm out and I don't go to, I tend not to go to places where I feel like I'm going to be in a phalanx with a bunch of other photographers because I just
Sure.
can't hear myself think. So it's usually the case that I'm in some totally random place and like it's pretty wide open and someone will come up to me. But yeah, it's actually very rare for me to see someone I know. I'm trying to
Okay.
think of the last time that even happened. Yeah, that's
And I
pretty
know
rare. I'm sure it has.
uh, aside from doing workshops where obviously you're going to be shooting alongside other people, do you prefer shooting alone, or you don't mind having other people?
I love shooting alone and I do that a lot. It really depends. If it's just one other person, that's also awesome. I
Hmm.
love that. Once you start tacking on more people, and let's say it's not a workshop and it's a group of friends, to me it gets a little more social and less serious. And
Yeah,
I
there's less
yeah.
photography and there's more talking and more socializing,
Yeah.
which is okay.
Totally. That's fun too. My group Photo Cascadia,
Yep.
we meet up once a year and we usually all go shooting together. So that's a perfect example. So you've got 7 of us all out together. We haven't seen each other in a year, and it's less about the photography than just about being together.
Sure, sure. Are you a planner or more spontaneous?
Yeah, we touched on that a bit earlier, but like I said, I think it's both. It starts at one and often pivots to the other. So even
Yeah.
if sometimes I will plan a shot and I absolutely am pursuing something and I'll keep at it. But very often that idea, that very impetus to go out and really hammer away at something came from something I just saw. Just
Mm,
spontaneously saw that. Ooh, there's an idea. See
nice.
when we can make that happen. And then I'm going to plan this out. That's a lot of shots come out that way. But I love just getting out there and seeing what I can make of something. Now,
Yeah.
recently like I just said, I was on that trip in the Southwest, for example, and I was on this hillside and I saw the most amazingly beautiful organ pipe cactus that had these really sexy curves, which is not
Nice.
super common for them. Some of them are really straight and some of them have these neat curves. This one was just awesome. And it had this patch of flowers growing up all around this bush that was intertwined with it. And I was so absolutely smitten with that that I went back and shot it 3 or 4 different days. So that one was definitely something where I just saw it and I saw this composition that I really liked, and I just kept working at it to see what kind of diffusion I could get with the clouds and how I could improve upon what I had. It turned out when I got back, the very first outing, that was the one. But hey, so it goes. Didn't need to do all those others.
What about creative blocks? Have you ever had them? And if so, do you have any strategies for staying inspired and engaged?
sometimes you feel like you're just repeating your patterns. And when I finally just made peace with that, but basically the habit is what style is, right? But your style is just the culmination of your habits. And so sometimes I've been like, oh, I'm not going to do that because I've done that a lot. I used to stop myself and then I would get myself all bound up. Like I'm back to that idea of doing something that's not something, which is working away, not working towards. And increasingly, I'm just like letting myself be myself. And yeah, I like doing that. Okay. I'm going to
Yeah.
do that.
Where do you see photography in society now?
Ooh, that's a big question. That's a fun one, actually. Right now, we're at a weird point, aren't we? Where people are trying to figure that out, I think, with AI becoming such a big controversial topic and the needs of photography in part being sort of supplanted by things that can just be conjured up with prompts. So where does photography, what is its role anymore? And I think that it doesn't have just one role. It has a lot. And I hope that it maintains its place as an art form. That's the one that I see being most threatened by the current climate of how people view photography in the world. A lot of people see just in black and white. And so it's either documentary photography or it's got to be some kind of AI fake stuff and it's not photography. And I just don't see things that way.
Yeah.
I'd like to
rarely
believe that there's space for art.
Oh,
What's that?
definitely. I was going to say I rarely see things as being that black and white myself. It's definitely
Good.
and I think it's a progression. I think, yes, there's risks for some areas of photography, like commercial photography with AI. We're already seeing in the fashion and product industry where photographers are getting supplanted a little bit by companies, marketing managers saying, all right, I can do this for virtually nothing compared to paying a
Nope.
photographer and a model and all the rest of it. I get that side of things, but I think there'll always be a place for art, and art in particular, the art of landscape photography. Landscape photographers are always going to go out because they like being outdoors and they like showing people what they see.
Yes. And I hope that people can continue to appreciate that photography isn't just photojournalism.
No, exactly.
But I think that's where the public is getting confused these days is that there's definitely been for a long time, we were making all of this progress, especially like around the era of Ansel Adams, with the idea that photography could be art.
Absolutely.
And then I think we lost a lot of ground with the recent concerns about AI and that sort of thing. And now there's a backlash against anything that's like photography shouldn't be art. And that stuff just really depresses me. I want there to be a lot of room for people to just express themselves and to make art with a camera.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree. Where do you see things going with social media and the way that artists, it's for me, it's definitely opened a lot of people's eyes up to the artistic pursuit of photography, but it's also, I think, made it more challenging, certainly to make money out of it, because there's now so many people doing it that it's sort of a very flooded market compared to where it was some years ago.
I think ultimately that is what needs to be underscored about social media. At the end of the day, it's about making money. And if you're about making art, you don't necessarily need it, do you? I actually just had this conversation with a friend. I have a friend who's got a full-time job as an IT guy, and he's an outstanding photographer. And we've had this conversation many times in the past, but he gets really depressed about social media and just the constant grind of it all. And I'm always talking him down off of a ledge. Look, it's not even something you need to be doing. Why are are you banging your head against that wall?
Yeah,
It's
that's it.
about money. That's what social media is all about. So it depends. If that's what you want to do is make money with it, okay, you're just going to have to either find another way, maybe by exhibiting or by having other people's social media accounts do your work for you. I'm fortunate to be in that position myself. Or you just have to hold your nose and dive in there and do it. But I personally do it very little of it anymore. Maybe I should pick it up. But I, I early on, I did very well with it, and I just really don't like it. And so I tried to just get out. And anymore, for the last almost year or more, I've given 100% of my new work to Canon to post on their channels.
Yeah,
And I
no,
don't post them on mine at all.
no.
And that doesn't help my social media accounts, but it sure helps me.
Yeah, yeah,
So why not?
absolutely. What do you see as being the biggest challenge facing photographers right now?
Oh, I think probably the fact that we've loved our locations too much. This is a common
Mm-hmm.
gripe that you anymore. It used to be you could go to places and just really enjoy them with your camera, and anymore they're not the same places. They're just loaded with people. For
Yeah,
example, I used to do a lot of Death Valley workshops, and I would take people out to the sand dunes, and they
yeah.
wouldn't see. There'd be like way over there, maybe a couple people near the parking lot. And you just see little tiny dots way over there or something. And
Mhm.
for years, it was like that. And then suddenly, I had this workshop, and I was up on this very tall dune. I was like, "There's a workshop, and there's a workshop, and there's a workshop," and then there's a bunch of photographers over there. It's just like swarms. It's not that, it doesn't have that wild feel to it anymore that it used to.
Yeah,
And it's the same with the Dolomites. And in that case, it's not necessarily photographers there. It's just tons of hikers with their
I
phones,
could.
and it's just
Yeah,
overrun. I
yeah.
call it Disney Dolomites now. And that, it's pushing me into places where I just keep trying to get away. So I'm always, fortunately, I have a pretty big repertoire of places where I can go and not see other photographers. But it is definitely pushing me further and further out. This summer, I was doing workshop research out in the middle of the Indian Ocean on an island, just and I didn't see another photographer the whole time I was out there. But boy, was that a long ways to go just to
It
find
is.
some place I can hear myself think and really.
I think you touched on a really good point there. It is increasingly hard to find locations that as remote as they used to be, because there are so many places now where you could go, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and as you said, hardly see another person. But now it's very
Mm-hmm.
challenging to find those locations and find those places
Yeah.
where people just aren't.
And like on the one hand, I love that people are like really experiencing the wilderness and that
Hmm.
they're getting into it and they love the
Yeah, yeah,
outdoors. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually one of the sort of the tenets of conservation is that people tend to preserve what they know and love. And the more that people get out to these places, one would hope that they would develop some care for it. Like, oh yeah, I've been there. That place is great. Wow, I wouldn't want anything to happen to it. But some of them are getting loved to death. So there's that too,
yeah,
the actual
definitely.
damage to some of these areas. But
Yeah.
even just the feeling of not getting away from it all anymore and that they're not that wild is unfortunate.
Yeah, I totally agree. I found a bit. I won't say I found it. I found myself on a beach because it's been there for a long time, and I've known it's been there for a while. But it's taken me a while to get there. But on a beach last week, I think it was, and there were five other people in total on that beach, which was really refreshing. And none of them
Yeah.
had tripods other than me. I was the only photographer out there, which was a little bit unusual. But one of the things that did happen was I was photographing this particular feature, and this couple strolling along the beach decided to spend about 10 minutes standing in front of a tripod picking up shells or interesting rocks or whatever. And I
That's a
was just
tough
saying,
one. Yeah.
that's their right, and I'm not going to spoil their enjoyment of. And it didn't really spoil mine. The light wasn't going to go away really quickly from. If it had been, I might have been
Yeah.
slightly more irate, but I just would have come back tomorrow.
Yeah. We've probably all been in a situation where, that the guy with the 10 millimeters has decided this is all his and he's going to yell at you, get
Yeah.
out of my shot. You don't want to be that guy.
I've developed a very thick skin and relaxed demeanor when out shooting. If there's other people enjoying the environment, that's their right, and I'm not gonna spoil it for them.
Yeah, that's actually one of my orientation points for every workshop. One of the first things I say is that if we encounter other people, no matter what they're there for, they have every right to be there.
Exactly.
So if they're in your shot, they're in your shot. That's what cloning is for.
Yeah, and the AI cloning in Photoshop now gets rid of them perfectly.
Yep, learn how to do that and you're good.
Yeah. I was shooting on another beach where there was a lot of people, and it took me about half an hour to get rid of them all. But I wasn't going to. I had absolutely no way of asking them all to move on. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I had a recent experience on the island of Madeira, and I had come to this one location. It's becoming more well known now, but there are these beautiful laurel trees in this one protected grove. Yeah. And when you get the misty conditions there, it's absolutely magic. It's a very special place.
Bluebird skies.
I'd gone up
all 3 days.
What's that?
I had bluebird
skies.
Blue
skies?
All 3 days.
Oh, no, that's too bad. I went up there the first time and it was perfect. It was so beautiful, but there were all of these fashion photographers. I think they each had a model, and then there was this whole group of people meditating, and everyone had their tree they were meditating by. And so I thought, wow, this is tricky. And so I worked the outskirts until I could find places where there weren't people in the way. And then I thought, I'm just going to go back. And so I went back the next time. And this time I get there, no other photographers, there's no meditating people. And I find this composition I absolutely love. And I had been working on avoiding all of these other people and letting them have their spot. And I find this one, and all of a sudden these kids come running in. And oh, you gotta be kidding me. And they want to climb on the tree that I'm photographing. And so I just sit there for a bit. And I'm waiting. And I had just set up my tripod too. And I'm waiting for the kids to move. And finally I asked the kids, so you going to be here for a while then? And they said, oh, we're looking for something, as kids will do. Yep. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm waiting and they're not moving. And then the kid's like, oh, are you taking a picture? I'm like, I hope to. Yeah. As soon as you find what it is you're looking for. And then he calls over to his friends and now there's more kids on the tree. And meanwhile, the mist is lifting and it's going away. And there goes my moment. Yeah, oh, it was brutal. Like, what are you going to do though?
This is it. There's not much you can do without just making yourself more irate than you need to be.
Exactly.
What's the best piece or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
Whoa, I would have to think about that. Oh, I think one of my favorite things to rail against would be the so-called "get it right in camera" phrase, because that is so just misleading. What is right? It's just what you want.
Yeah, when people have said that to me, I've said, so you're fine with Canon, Nikon, Sony, whoever it is, whoever made all the compromises that they had to make to create your device. You're happy with them making the decision about what your photo is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they think a little bit about it and go, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The whole idea that you should be pursuing some kind of perfection, I think, is really counterproductive. I actually have a talk on this, and I'm doing it again in the one in Arkansas. This one I'm doing in Arkansas next month. And that basically, my point is essentially that if you're pursuing perfection, you're probably not creating photographs that you would really love because you feel like there's something that you can't get exactly right. And yeah, I don't like that term. And I also don't like the zoom with your feet. Whoever came up with that has never walked around along a mountain ledge where you have 1,000 feet of exposure in one side.
Yeah,
So,
I certainly,
old,
I certainly felt that the São Lourenço Peninsula there in Madeira,
yeah.
up on the cliffs there, and I'm
Yeah.
standing about 5 or 6 meters back from the edge because I really don't want to put my tripod closer than that, and so I'm definitely using the zoom on the lens. I'm not using my feet to go any closer.
Sometimes to get an exact alignment of something,
Oh yeah,
it's not about moving you. You got to change your focal length.
Yeah,
That's all there is to it. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that people say that I don't think turn out to be helpful as much as just sort of deterrence to being creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but as on the other side of things, I don't know what good advice I've gotten probably comes from when I was still an academic, and some of what I remember, I actually went to art school too before I even became an art historian. I was in art school for a couple of years, and I got a lot of great advice there that sticks with me to this day. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, it went completely blank. I thought your mobile signal there had lost.
No, still here.
Connection. Oh yeah,
you were saying you got a lot of good advice.
Yeah, and I think that the best advice of all of that was from a graphic design teacher I had who basically, this is probably what just made me more tenacious in the field, is basically his idea of go big was not print big. It was ask yourself, what is the fullest expression of what it is that you want to do, and go do that. Don't sell yourself short because you have to walk too far, or it's too hard to do that, or whatever it is. How far can you push this thing?
Yeah.
And that was really good advice because it's so easy to be lazy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to have to wrap up shortly, but I've got a couple of questions that I always ask. One is, are there any photographers that you think I should be talking to?
I don't know who you have already, but
just chuck me a couple of names and see if we've
Have you spoken with Rachel Talabert?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Oh, good on you. Yeah. I love her work. How about Simon Baxter?
No, he is on my list, but I haven't spoken to him.
Yeah, you got to talk to Simon. He's a good talker, and he has just a wonderful way of articulating what it is that he's doing. I think that'd be a good conversation.
Awesome.
And then Adrian Klein from Photo Cascadia.
Yeah, I haven't caught up with Adrian.
Yeah. Got to talk to Adrian. He went full time again recently, and he's just been on an absolute tear. And he's just a really good guy. So yeah, you should talk to Adrian.
Fantastic. Thank you. My last question's a very important issue for many people, not just in photography, but I know a lot of photographers do talk about it. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Yep. I'm a pineapple on pizza person. Yep. I'm in that camp.
Excellent. Oh, it's really been wonderful talking to you, Erin. It's been great to get to know you a little bit better and learn a lot more about what you do. Where can people find your work?
You can find it on my website, erinbabnik.com, and also on the Photo Cascadia website, and also through Canon USA.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Erin.
Thank you, Grant. It was a great discussion.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.